Hi, everybody. You're reading with Jimmy. This is part 2 of the analysis of Guy de Maupassant's The Horla, pages 320, to 325. All right, let's adjust this so we can all see it, right? Here we go. We left off with the narrator walking with the monk talking about the wind. In the face of the simple reasoning, the narrator tells us he fell silent. I could not have said which, but I held my peace. Man was either a sage or a fool. Sage is a wise man, fool is a fool, right? He couldn't say if the monk was wise or a fool, so he just didn't say anything. For what he had said, I had often thought, which means he's a sage or a fool. I don't know if you ever thought about the wind or about your senses and how your senses are, how they receive information. Just like what we're reading now, we have to go inside the book and try. That's why this book, this Horla, this story, is a gift, because we're getting into the head of someone who's going crazy. They're going nuts. But he's back from his trip. He slept badly. My coachman is suffering from the same trouble as him. So he's got a coachman. We're finding out he's got servants. So this guy is wealthy, right? He's living in this house. He's got servants. Of course, you know that if you read the story, because you know what happens. But he basically has servants. So now the coachman is suffering from the same thing. He noticed his curious pallor, the color. What's wrong with you, Jean? I can't get a good night's sleep. My nights just eat into my days. Since you were away, monsieur, it's been like this all the time. The other servants are all right, but I am terrified of its taking hold of me again. Its pronouns. We saw the word creature. We saw it means sleeps, but now it's its. July 4th, it has taken hold of me again. My old nightmares come back. Last night I felt somebody squatting on top of me, pressing his mouth against mine and drinking my life through his lips. Oh my gosh. Oh, we should just lock this guy up, right? No. Think about this. Can you imagine that? Now, there's people reading this book saying the guy's nuts. He's not, of course. But that shouldn't deter you from trying to understand what's going on in this person's mind. He's taking the time to write it down in a diary, to share it with us. Well, Jimmy, are you saying that Maupassant is crazy? No, we're not talking about Guy de Maupassant. We're talking about the narrator of this story who's writing in the diary. Well, Jimmy, didn't Maupassant write this story? You said that he wrote it in 1887? I did, but that doesn't mean that it's him. The gift of writing is that he gives us the gift of writing that's not, well, are you saying he based it on his experience? Well, perhaps. I've never had that experience of somebody on top of training the life out of me, but maybe he did. But it doesn't matter. What matters is this guy is giving us a glimpse into himself, into his mind. He woke up bruised, battered, exhausted, and he couldn't move anymore. Have I lost my reason? What happened last night is so peculiar, my head reels just to think of it. So here's another night that happened. I locked my door, and as I do every evening, I'm feeling thirsty. I drank a half a glass of water. I happened to notice that my carafe was full up right to the crystal stopper. And after that, I went to bed, right? Someone is drinking his water. By the shock of frightful, he had experienced before. Imagine a man who's listen to this. Imagine a man who's stabbed to death in his sleep and wakes up with the knife in his lung, with a death rattle in his throat, covered with blood, unable to breathe, on the point of death and incapable of understanding what has happened to him. And there you have what I felt. Ladies and gentlemen, you've seen horror movies, you've seen, all sorts of visual representations of, bloodbaths, stuff like that. Look at the words this guy's using in his diary to describe what he feels. The writing itself is amazing for you to picture this and for you to feel it. And so when he finally came to his senses, he felt thirsty, but his carafe was standing. He picks it up. Nothing came out. It was empty, completely empty. First, he was mystified. Then he collapsed in a chair, etc. It's a riddle. Somebody must have drunk the water, but who? Maybe me? See, how crazy is he when he says, well, maybe I did it. Maybe it was me. Yes, it could have been me. Maybe I'm a sleepwalker. Yeah, he's going crazy, but the crazy people don't rationally think about things like this. Maybe he's a sleepwalker. I was living in the mysterious double life. He talks a little bit about that. But I don't know any sleepwalkers, but I do know I kick sometimes when I'm sleeping. Unfortunately, my wife is not near me because there was only anyway. Who can understand my dreadful anguish, and who can understand the feelings of a sane-minded, wide-awake, thoroughly rational man as he gazes in horror into a glass carafe, looking for a little water which has disappeared during his sleep? So he's looking at the empty carafe, and it's empty. He's looking at it in horror. I stayed there until daybreak, not daring go back to bed. The Cleveland Clinic says, what is sleepwalking? Sleepwalking is a sleep disorder that causes you to move around unexpected activities while asleep. The condition runs in families, and most people grow out of it. The formal name of sleepwalking is symbolism, which comes from the Latin word sleep and walking. Experts classify sleep disorder, paranoia, whatever. How common is it? 7% of people sleepwalk at least once in their lifetime. That's not a lot. 7%? What's 7% of, 3.25 million people in the U.S.? Sleepwalking usually starts in childhood. Most people grow out of it within a year. About 5 to 15% of children, most often between ages 4 and 8. 1 to 1.5% of adults experience sleepwalking. So this is not a common thing, but we know what it is. Is this guy sleepwalking? Which means that he's getting up and drinking the carafe? Now he says the next day, I am going mad. There it is. One of the questions to ask yourself, does a mad person know he's mad? Do you know you're mad when you're mad? I don't know. Maybe we're all mad. If you read my Alice in Wonderland chapter with the Mad Tea Party, those are some pretty interesting critters. Anyway, all the water in my carafe was drunk again last night. Or rather, I drank it. But did I? Was it I? Who else could it see how he is? I've been carrying an astonishing experiment. Here's his experiment. He leaves wine, milk, water, bread, and strawberries out. Somebody drank the wine, somebody drank the water and a little milk. The wine was untouched. Strawberries and the bread were untouched. The next day, July 7th, same experiment, same result. July 8th, nothing was touched. He didn't leave water and milk out. Finally, on July 9th, I put the water and milk. Who's doing this? Who's going to the extent of this except somebody who's going mad? Look at what this guy's doing. He's trying to rationalize what the heck is going on. He knows somebody's drinking the water. He's trying to figure out if it's him or something else. He rubbed my lips. Look at this. Look at this. He wraps the carafes in white Muslim cloths to the stoppers and then rubs his lips, beard. This is giving us a little idea of what he looks like, and hands with black lead. The sleep took hold of him, the irresistible sleep. He didn't stir. The sheets themselves were unmarked. He rushed to the table. The water had been drunk, but nothing was there. God Almighty, I got to get out of here. So he goes to Paris. All the milk was gone, but there was no lead marks on the carafe. I don't. He goes to Paris. I obviously lost my head the last few days. I must have been the plaything of fevered imagination. I've fallen under one of those well-authenticated and inexplicable influences known as suggestion. In any case, my terror bordered on madness. 24 hours in Paris have been enough to restore my mental equilibrium. I'm okay now. I'm okay. He goes to the theater, sees the younger Dumas play. Me no doubt, solitude is dangerous for active minds. Etc., etc., etc. Amid the jostling of the crowd, he thought contemptuously, with contempt. Oh, jeez, I can't believe this. He believed that an invisible being was living in his house. He's walking along the crowd saying, how stupid can I be? How weak our minds are. Instead of coming to the simple conclusion, I don't understand because the cause escapes me, he imagines terrifying mysteries. Bastille Day. Goes for a stroll. He makes this comment. You know, there's a comment on what Bastille Day is here. It's the common name given to the National Day of France when they stormed the Bastille. You should read about it. So it's a big deal, like the 4th of July is in the United States. Big deal. So then he says, the nation is a stupid herd, alienating between imbecile acceptance and savage rebellion. You say to it, the nation, enjoy yourself, and it enjoys itself. You say to it, go and fight your neighbor, and it goes to fight. You say to it, vote for the emperor, and it votes for the emperor. You say to it, vote for the republic, and it votes for the republic. I don't know about you, but that's, sometimes you think that, right? The government is like that. I don't know. Its rulers are just as stupid, but instead of obeying men, they obey principles, which can only be ridiculous, sterile. And let's finish this. False, by reason of the very fact that they're principles. What are principles, right? Freedom of speech, everything, the principles, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. He says the fact that they're principles, they're false. I don't know. They say ideas which are regarded as certain and immutable in this world where nobody can be sure of anything. Some light and sound are both illusions. He says light and sound are both illusions. Before we leave this analysis today, we're going to talk about that. Then he goes, and his cousin, Madame Sable, he goes over to the Dr. Parents there. And if you remember this, he puts her under a hypnotic spell. This is an excellent part to read if you haven't read it, or to read again. But in any case, he hypnotizes her, right? And they talk about hypnotism here. They talk about suggestion, spirits, fairies, gnomes. What is a gnome? It's a small mythological creature, small spirit of Renaissance magic and alchemy. You see these at Christmas time, these little gnomes, these little gnomes, they come out dressed like elves, right? So in any case, she sat down in the armchair, and for his part, he felt uneasy. My heart was pounding wildly. Why? So he puts her under, and he tells her, you're going to go and borrow 5,000 francs. He puts a hypnotic suggestion into her. And the narrator was twisting his mustache. The narrator's appearance, more clues of what this guy looks like. He put a photograph in her pocket. He puts the photograph out of his pocket. Whose photograph? A photograph of himself. And she was right. That's what the narrator was pulling out. And she's not looking, this is a mirror. He gives her a visiting card. She's looking in a visiting card, pretending it's a mirror, and she's seeing what's going on behind her, what the narrator's doing. She could obviously see in that card something going on. We're going to stop there for now. And I know, Jimmy, don't stop. I want to see what's going on. Well, you should have read it, because you know what's going to happen. He's going to give her a suggestion to go to the narrator and borrow her some money. before you go, I've got a lot of notes down here. I'm not going to read them all, but I'm going to leave them up here for a minute, and we're going to talk about it. So this first one is a reference to one of the physicians that theologian, pioneer in the aspect of medical revolution of the Renaissance, the value of observation and wisdom. You know, we didn't know what we know today all the time. You're not born with all this wisdom. It comes through observations. You know, Da Vinci used to cut up cadavers to learn about the human body. And if you've ever seen his drawings, they're still used in medical school. So this came from some research on Google. The sound that we hear is really an equivalent of the real thing of what sound really is, and it's just vibrations in the air particles getting to our ears. So we don't even know what sound is. It's vibrations that are produced in the eardrum, and we just get used to it to interpret those vibrations that go to our head. Just like light and how it creates color. Remember what I told you about light? The light spectrum is immense. If you're colorblind, you can't see that spectrum. So you have limitations of your senses. In fact, there is no color in the universe, and there is no sound in the universe. What do you mean, Jimmy? You're talking to us. You know, this is a video recording of the analysis of the Horla. You told it. Of course it is. But in the universe, you go into space, go ask the astronauts. There is no sound. There is no color. No color. Color is produced by what? Light reflecting in your eyes and your eyes' ability to delineate color. You've heard of computer color? Jimmy used to be in advertising, and he would go to print proofs where they would print the piece before everything was digital, and he would witness arguments over the color red. The client would be screaming that it's too red, it's too red. And Jimmy finally learned to see what their red was, because I'm colorblind. I don't see red. But they were getting really angry over being too red, and I would wonder, what are they talking about? Were they crazy? No, I'm just kidding. Sound is not an illusion. Another guy said it's how our brains interpret certain wavelengths. The vibrations are there whether or not someone is present to hear them. You understand that? So the sound is either real or it's not. It's your vibrations. So here's Jimmy's thought. Ready? If you yell in a forest and no one is around to hear you, is there a sound? Think about this. I want to use the bear. If the bear does something in the forest and no one's around to hear him, is there a sound? Is there a sound produced if no one's around to hear it? Email me your answers. What is the Nancy School of French Hypnosis Center of Psychotherapy? The origins of thoughts were brought about by this guy in 1866 in France, blah, 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 blah. So it's hypnosis. Everybody's trying to understand human behavior, human beings, etc. Then they also mentioned Voltaire. I think he was up here, wasn't he? Let's see here. Maybe not. Maybe he's coming up. Anyway, Voltaire. Well, you'll see him in the next analysis. Voltaire said, if God didn't exist, we would have to invent him. Voltaire is a famous French writer. In his lifetime, he published numerous works. He's famous for the works Candide. You should look him up. I thought he did. I did say Voltaire. But in any case, they quote Voltaire here. And it's important to know who Voltaire is. Remember, you're dealing in France. All right? You're reading with Jimmy. This is part 2 of 4 parts analysis of the Horla. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you're thinking. I hope you figured out if sound is sound or whatever. And Jimmy at readingwithjimmy.com. Jimmy at readingwithjimmy.com. Thanks for listening. I was going to tell you I was talking and not talk, but I decided not to fool around with your heads. Thanks. Bye.